Uh, as most of you in this room know, we are in the midst of an affordable and homeless housing crisis here in the city of Los Angeles. There are over 55,000 individuals living on the street any given night in the county, and that number is skyrocketing. Over the past 10 years, that number has grown over 60%. We also think that number is underrepresented given how challenging it is to actually measure that number. This is an issue that affects all of us. County Supervisor Mark Ridley Thomas has said this is the issue of our generation, and it affects everyone, all of us on a daily level. Today, I was at the locksmith making some locks on the corner of Willoughby and Vine, and I looked out on 3 of 4 of the corners. There were tenements. I actually grew up less than a mile from that corner and used to drive on that corner every single morning on the way to school, and there never used to be tenements in that area. Within increased public focus of homeless housing, there have been new funding programs and increased resources and tailwinds that have been made available in order to tackle this crisis. And those are the roots at which NeighborhoodWorks was founded. We created our business to find more innovative ways to build permanent supportive housing faster and cheaper. Currently, it's costing developers upwards of $500,000 per unit in order to build homeless housing, and we think there's a better way. So as you can see on the left, the number of homeless individuals living on the street in the county has been skyrocketing, and the 2019 homeless count should be out in several months. And I think it's important to point out that what we're building is called permanent supportive housing. So that is permanent housing for formerly homeless individuals coupled with on-site services to help these individuals reintegrate into society. So on the right, what you can see is the RAND Corporation study that showed that they did a study on individuals that use public services and compared the year before and the year after they were housed. As you can see, there is a massive savings once you house these individuals, and a lot of those savings are actually being put towards new housing programs targeted towards building more permanent supportive housing. Briefly want to talk about the team. We are made up of UCLA Anderson and UCLA School of Law students, teams here and there as well. And we have a strong background in real estate development, real estate law, affordable housing development, venture capital, private equity, investment banking, nonprofits, journalism, the list goes on. And we're really excited to scale. So some of the tailwinds we were talking about earlier, most have been made available both on the zoning side as well as the funding side. So first on the zoning side, they've been made new ordinances specifically for this type of product that allow for denser projects with no parking requirements. And that's a huge difference that makes these projects much more feasible. And on the right, there have been many new funding programs that help these deals pencil. The city, for example, passed a $1.2 billion bond measure where the residents of the city actually voted to tax ourselves. So thank you for that. And I'm going to turn it over to Aaron.
So with all those tailwinds in mind, we went on a search for a parcel that would best fit our business model, culminating in our first project, which we dubbed WattsWorks. This is a 25-unit ground-up development located in South LA. We've purchased the property, we've begun the entitlement process, and we've also actually gotten $2.5 million of committed public funding already. That's from the city of Los Angeles. We are looking to bring 2 major innovations into the affordable housing space. The first of which is our construction process. Through modular construction or off-site construction, we're hoping to first bring costs dramatically down in the affordable housing space. That's because anything that's built off-site in affordable housing is not required to have the expensive union wage requirements that other projects are required to have. Anything built on-site is still required to have those union wage requirements. The second is time reduction. Because we're building the building off-site and shipping it to be assembled on-site, we're actually able to prep the site itself and construct the building simultaneously. Our second innovation is through financing. We are actually not using low-income housing tax credits on this project, and that allows us to actually cut through a lot of red tape, or actually bypass a lot of red tape that further lessens our development timeline. As you can see, our capital stack is actually almost complete for this project. We've raised the required equity, We have over half of the government subsidized debt already committed, and we have a term sheet already for our construction loan. We have 2 other projects that we're working on right now, and to preface this, I want to say that these 2 projects are actually more traditional affordable housing projects, and there's 2 reasons why we decided to do this. First is we wanted a more simple structure that we could take advantage of some of the funding sources that we think are going to be going away somewhat soon. And then second, which is more important to us, is that since we're a new company, we wanted a couple larger projects in our portfolio that we could leverage for our future projects. The first of which is 5050 Bachman. That's a 40-unit development in North Hollywood, and that is for survivors of domestic violence. The second of which is we've dubbed the 78th. That's in Hyde Park. It's a 64-unit mixed-use development, and that is targeted towards homeless families. Now I want to talk a bit about how we make money. It's actually quite simple. We make money as a percentage of development costs. This is regulated by the government agencies that provide the funding sources. It's about a 15% of costs, and this chart here actually shows the revenue we'd receive just from the 3 projects that we already have under development. And as we scale and as we take on more developments, obviously the numbers from 2022 and beyond would start to increase.
So this is a snapshot of the legal structure for each one of our deals. Each one of our deals is housed in a limited partnership, which is the holding entity, and this is standard in affordable housing deals. The limited partnership itself is the holder of the real estate asset and the borrower on record for any loans. Within the limited partnership, we have 2 general partners. One is the administrative partner, which is an LLC affiliate of us, NeighborhoodWorks. And the second is the managing general partner, which is an LLC affiliate of our nonprofit partner. And the reason for this is twofold. First of all, the Board of Equalization regulations require that we have a nonprofit partner in order to qualify for the property tax exemption. And secondly, the nonprofit partner also has a lot of experience applying for public funding and managing the services that are affiliated with a permanent supportive housing project. So they handle that aspect of each deal that we do. And then finally, we have our limited partner tax credit investor, which provides capital in exchange for the benefit of the tax credits and also the depreciation on the property.
So we're really in a position into the future where we really think we can scale this business rapidly. Governor Gavin Newsom has actually called for a Marshall Plan for affordable housing, not just homeless housing, and we really feel like there are going to be new funding sources really available over the long term to really scale this operation. But in the short term, we've applied to several different programs that would help increase our scale in the short term. The first of which is the Homeless Innovation Challenge at the county level. That's a $500,000 grant that we were named a finalist of, and we're actually should be receiving that grant in June, pending final approval from the county supervisors. The second of which is another $500,000 grant that would broaden WattsWorks, our first non-tax credit deal, into a larger scattered site model. So we would be able to do 4 of those at a time, take advantage of economies of scale in order to bulk order the boxes and have our GC do multiple projects at once. We've had some positive feedback on that, and winners are expected to be announced later this week. And finally, the city of Los Angeles has a $120 million pool of money looking for more innovative ways to build homeless housing, and we're going to be proposing another solution similar to our WattsWorks project as well. So, in general, we're really excited about this competition. This grant would really provide us the opportunity to really jumpstart the business, not only on funding individual projects, but more on a corporate level, taking on more legal representation, potentially hiring a project manager as well, in addition to the team, and it would really be a game changer for us. So thank you.
So you began by talking about a solution for the homeless, but it looks like out of your 3 projects, only one of them deals with the homeless. The other one's affordable housing, where the profile, I assume, is different.
So the first project, WattsWorks, is 100% permanent supportive housing. The second project, NoHo 50/50, which we're closing on the acquisition loan next month, is actually 32 units of homeless and 7 units of family. So those are 32 units for homeless individuals who've have experienced domestic violence, and then seven qualifying low-income families. And then our third project, the 78th, is 36 units of homeless for homeless individuals and homeless families, and 27 units of qualifying affordable housing.
Can you go back to the chart of one of the projects for a moment?
Sure.
So, for example, the social service provider, who is paying for the individuals?
Sure. So interestingly enough, the social service costs don't run through our P&L. The County H program actually funds every single homeless housing development within the county, and that's funded at $450 per tenant per month, and that's a different funding source than HHH, it's a little confusing, County H dollars, and that's a 10-year program.
So just take me through the economics then.
Sure.
So what's your return?
So,
Based on what I assume you're gonna rent all the units in day one, they're all gonna be committed for.
sure.
So what's the
So
return?
I think it's important to point out that this really isn't a cash flowing asset. So rather, because the way the city funding works, it's basically a residual receipt loan. So essentially, they get half of the cash flow once the project spits off any cash flow. So you're really making most of your money up front on the developer fee. So you're almost monetizing that back end cash flow through an upfront developer fee. So it's hard to say returns because it's not really, the tax credit deals aren't really equity-based businesses. In terms of our WattsWorks project, which requires more equity on the upside, on the front end, we're modeling over a 30% return because you're able to take out debt on the property once it's stabilized.
And what is the tax credit offered?
So the 4% tax credit is a non-competitive source through the State Tax Credit Allocation Committee, and it funds about 35% of project costs.
And so what you're really saying is they've generated an incentive for you to build as fast as possible, as many as possible, because you want to collect your developer fees. But ultimately, if the project, should go into poor operation and things of that nature, you really aren't playing for the ultimate residual.
So
I mean, it doesn't seem like the incentives make sense
Well,
from a city point of
there
view.
clearly are some perverse incentives in terms of maximizing cost to maximize your developer fee, but so every time you apply for a new loan through the city or the county or any of these different sources, they qualify that every single one of your other projects are completely in compliance, you're paying on a timely basis, so it's really sort of maintaining your reputation to do more projects into the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to piggyback on that, any tax credit deal has a 10 to 15-year compliance period in which none of that is possible. You cannot be dilapidated. You have to be in perfect compliance. Otherwise, your tax credit investor doesn't get what they were promised.
Is that only a tax credit just state or is it also federal?
So there's a federal credit and a state credit, but these are federal programs for the most part.
Can you go back to that structure slide? That one. Okay. So in order to actually generate a return for long-term investors, wouldn't it make a little bit of sense at least to roll the upfront fees you're getting at NeighborhoodWorks into the limited partner, which is generating all of the value in the long term?
So first of all, I think it's important to point out that this is only for a tax credit structure. For the way our WattsWorks project is set up is the percentage of cash flow or the percentage of equity proceeds that you provide in the deal. That's the percentage of the debt dividend distribution that you're going to get once the project is stabilized, and the developer fee would just be to the administrative and the managing general partner. I don't know if that answered your question.
Why don't you go to that slide that you had?
So okay, so this. I don't think we have that slide, but happy to explain.
Well, did you put up in this example, are you putting up 240 or 120 of it?
So we put up $240,000. We raised $140,000 of LP equity, and basically the distribution once the project is stabilized is split amongst this percentage, and then the developer fee is split amongst the GP pool, which is the nonprofit and us.
I see. Who are the nonprofits typically involved in this?
So there's a small universe of nonprofits that operate in the space, two of which that we're partnering with are a Community of Friends and Decro Corporation. They really have limited bandwidth, so there really is an opportunity to sort of partner in name and in services, and we would handle much more of the development opportunities moving on into the
And
future.
what are the terms of the government subsidized debt of that $3.5 million?
So they're 55-year interest-only terms, and it's a residual receipt loan. So there's no mandatory payment. So let's say you have $100 of cash flow, $50 of first lien debt. Out of that $50 post debt, you'd split that 50-50, and then
I-
everything else is kicked to year 55.
I see. So the interest, in effect, it's a cash flow loan in effect?
The way that most industry experts think about it is if it could be a grant, it would be, but for tax purposes, it's considered a loan.
I see. And is your construction loan an arm's length construction loan?
It's a typical construction loan through a local CDFI.
Okay, so now the project's done. Let's say the one you're doing, the Watts project. The project's done. So how do you qualify who the occupants are going to be? How do they afford it?
Sure.
Where does the money come? Who operates it?
There are six. Basically, the county has set up what's called the coordinated entry system, and there are 6 service planning areas that basically match tenant with unit, and there's a huge backlog, right? So they can fill those units relatively quickly. Each of these projects have a 15-year project-based voucher contract. So the county is actually paying 15 years worth of rent set at predetermined levels, and they actually provide 2 months of vacancy as well. And basically our perm loan is underwritten to that voucher contract. On the operational side, we have a project management partner that has deep experience with this specific population. This is the only type of product that they do. And then we also have on-site services from our nonprofit partners as well.
Thank you.
Great, thank you so much.